I'm Chika Eloy, and this is a conversation designed for BCD people with BCD people. On this show, we're running through the diverse cultures of talent at BCD Travel, and we're showcasing our most confident self-colleagues. So come on, let's go have some fun as we explore the different functions, spaces, faces, and the complexities across our world of BCD. Well, to all of our listeners, welcome back to another wonderful podcast episode of The World of BCD, with today coming to you live from Atlanta, a very, very special guest, Miss Shemika. Britt, welcome to the call.
Thanks for having me, Chika, and congratulations on your 5,000 person download milestone.
Our 5,000 download milestone, because this is a World of BCD and it's massive and it seems to be keep on getting momentum episode after episode. So thanks to all of our listeners for sharing. But Shemika, this episode is all about you. Why don't I just hand you the...
We'll call it a microphone.
Okay,
a
good.
Megaphone, because
a megaphone.
My life feels mega to me, so we'll call it a megaphone for this episode.
Let's go.
All right, Chika, honestly, I'll take you back a little ways. I've always been interested, intrigued, drawn to the idea of storytelling. I remember my very first venture into the land of storytelling was a story about a pig that won me an award and $50 in Burger King bucks back in third grade.
This is awesome.
I can't tell you much about that story, but I know that it was about a pig and he eventually found his way home. So that's where my love of storytelling came from. I had a great grandmother who was an awesome speaker and storyteller, and I believe she probably was a griot in a different life. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And I am blessed to have some of that magic sprinkled on me. In recent times, I've been with BCD for about 7, nearly 8 years. Prior to that, I worked in different communications roles in college publishing. I worked for a global advertising agency and really enjoyed that work until I got burned out, and was fortunate to encounter a recruiter who told me all about BCD Travel, and that's how I landed here and on this call with you today. You know, I've worn a couple hats.
Many roads have led to our conversation today, but I'll stick with your story. Go ahead.
That's your story. You're sticking to it. I've worn a couple hats since I've been at BCD Chika. I started with the sales cycle support team, fondly known as the bid team. They support our sales leaders, and was not a bid writer on that team, but was responsible for creating responses for the magical database that they use to answer questions about our business, our services, our people, and what we do. And I worked with Bruno's team for a few years until I landed an opportunity to join marketing in my current role, which is the manager of our Move blog newsletter / place to get all the latest and greatest information on the company and what we're up to. We have about 13 regional editions of that Move news site. I hands-on manage the global, APAC, and North America sites, and then I oversee editors in the different regions who manage the sites and languages that I don't speak. We're a great team. We're all one team, one goal, to quote our fearless leader. And our biggest push right now is to elevate and amplify the messaging of BCD's key differentiators. Do you know what those are, Chika? I'm going to put you on the spot.
I do, and I hope that we can dig into them as we speak together today. But before we lose what you've just shared, that I want to make sure that we point out to ourselves, you and I, as well as the listeners, was the cool fact that you've been in 3 different roles. And from what you shared, the very earliest role, it's like you were forced to learn how to tell the BCD story, which has now accelerated you in your current role managing the brand and spreading that story even wider. So that's really, I'm fascinated just as an individual contributor. How, when you get thrown in the deep end on a bid write, you have to write the perfect response to incoming. What was it that you mentioned?
Let me clarify. It's been 2 roles. I was not a bid writer. I was more of a content writer for that team. So there were bid writers, but I wrote or helped shape the responses that we use to answer RFPs, everything from nuts to bolts. And I think one of the reasons that my background was attractive to that team and to Bruno Fornaserio at the time is that I was not already inculcated into the travel management industry. I came to it with a fresh set of eyes. I came to it from a place where I was learning as I went. And I think it was an awesome introduction and a smart entree to travel for anybody who's interested in working in managed travel, because you have to learn the business. And it was very easy for me to kind of convey messaging in a simpler format, because I wasn't already entrenched in the jargon, if you will.
And while I've got you on this topic, they're really
Sure.
two really cool teams that you were part of prior to this current role that you're in. For an individual, how was that for you to make the jump from one to another? Were you supported by your managers? Was that something you kind of had to have that courageous conversation and say, I'm leaving by, but I'm staying in just on this side of the pond?
I have to give the bid team credit. I have to give Bruno credit for his vision and for his willingness to see people really take their careers where they want it. When I started with the team, I have been very transparent about my career path in other companies. I'm never afraid to ask what's next. I'm never afraid to knock on a door, nudge someone's elbow and say, hey, what are you doing? In case it's something that I want to do too. And so before I was actually offered a formal opportunity to join the marketing team, I obviously in that role, I interviewed a lot of people. I met a lot of people. I asked a lot of people different questions. And there was an opportunity, a brief opportunity to cover for the Advito marketing director at that time while she went out on maternity leave. Very short stint with Advito, but it put me in front of some people and probably started some seeds and some thoughts, perhaps planted some seeds about where I could go next and what I could do next. And that's how I landed in the marketing group.
And what a cool example of that confident self-weak story that Christian spoke about, where he spoke about, just ask, just push, just ask for the stretch and go for it. I mean, you're a living example of that. So thank you, Shemika, for sharing your backstory. And to answer your question around the key differentiators, I believe, and you're going to correct me if I'm wrong, and I may not say these in order, it's innovation, simplicity, and partnership. Am I correct?
You're absolutely correct.
Yes. Are they the right order? Does it matter?
I don't think it matters, but I usually think of them as PSI, right? So, but never PIS, because that's not what we're about here.
That's funny. All right, so talk to us about the why behind the what here. We're talking about the key differentiators that you use in the marketing team to do what?
We use them in the marketing team to kind of message against the work that our competitors are doing and really do what they say, differentiate ourselves from others in the marketplace. BCD has some very strong differentiators. Partnership, that's where we talk to people about strengthening, the way that we can help strengthen their team and allow them to trust the people on their team. And simplicity, just really finding simpler ways to do what can sometimes be complex work. And then innovation, making digital moves that kind of help power our revolution. Usually those are digital moves, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just good ideas that help our clients, our prospects, our people manage their days and handle their work with ease.
Well, that's pretty clear there, Shemika. And so I have two follow-up questions: partnership, simplicity, innovation. To the random employee that's sitting in the depths of Australia, to the senior leader that's in the sales team that's sitting in the US, what's the difference for those three? Does this matter to everybody that works at BCD, or just the people on the sales side or external facing? Like, maybe you can make some key distinctions there.
I think if you've listened to any of John's videos, if you've read any of the messaging in our Focus magazine, you know that the answer matters to each and every person at BCD. All 13,800 creative, connected, and committed people. It matters. BCD Travel is really in an interesting and exciting and unique place right now. Like, we're accelerating and innovating. That was the theme of our recent global sales and marketing meeting. And, we're not doing business as usual. We're not offering people the same format, the same opportunities or options for every client, because, and this is not just reciting sales collateral, Chica, this really is the truth. One size does not fit all. We recognize that at BCD, and we're not doing business in a usual way. That's why being able to sort of bucket our actions and our goals and our missions using these key differentiators is so important for all of us.
So in saying that, can you give me as an individual contributor here, when I'm reciting the key differentiators in my daily work, partnership, what's a way that I can be in more partnership with the people that I work with?
I think this podcast is an example of a way that you're partnering.
Great. So on the simplicity side, or being more simple, is that with my own processes? Is that with the people that I work with?
See, all of the above. And I'm not saying that to give you a vague answer, but it's really all of those things. It's if you figure out a way to make a complex process simple. For example, something related to in your role in HR, something related to how we get something done simpler, how we get, say, vacation approved faster. And I'm just using that as an example. But if you figured out a way to do that, then speak up. It's simplicity. It's making everything less complex wherever you find a possibility, and that's true for our clients and our prospects as well. Some of the things we do with online booking tools, some of the things we do to help with TripSource, using TripSource to manage every part of a trip from beginning to end. That's where the simplicity really shines through at BCD.
Now, the innovation one's fascinating, and I'm sure you can speak to this very, very well, Shemika, as well. What if I'm just sitting here in my, as you would call it, my laboratory day to day at home, and I don't have a team around me? I'm not face to face. I can't just boom, crash, opera into somebody's boardroom because I work in a remote place somewhere in the world. How do I become more innovative?
Think about what you need. What is one thing that you need and that could do to power your own revolution, or power a change in your own daily work? Just the act of going through the exercise, I think, is innovation.
Okay, then that's a really good distinction, because sometimes I think there's a blend between process improvement and innovation, right? And so I
agree.
In innovation, the idea that, what do I need and what's a new way of thinking about what I need is different than just making it simpler. No, that's really, really key. Okay, so we've got the key differentiators. So what? What do I do now? What do our listeners do now, Shemika? How does this tie into the overall mission and vision of BCD? How do you and your team see us helping you propel the message forward and outward?
I think sharing content from our Move website is a good way to do that. I think amplifying the messages or that we share via channels like social media, BCD Buzz, I think that's the swiftest, easiest way to help amplify BCD's key differentiators if you're not quite sure, or not quite confident and ready to have those conversations on your own. Just familiarize yourself with some of the stuff we're doing. Read up. It's quick, it's easy. We have it on Move in just about any language you can think of. Read about it. We simplify it. We synthesize it into small, digestible, easy to comprehend and easy to share chunks. The information is there. So I think that's one thing we can all do every day or every week to help amplify the messages. If Twitter is your channel, retweet. If LinkedIn is your channel, repost or comment on some of the great content that's being put out there. And in fact,
while we're on Move, just before you continue down there, Shemika, if I'm not familiar with Move, where do I find it? Is it only internal facing?
No, Move is absolutely external facing. You find it at move.bcdtravel.com. That's move.bcdtravel.com. Classic.
Please continue.
So I was just saying that if you're not quite sure where to start with sharing one thing. I'll tell you candidly that even though I'm responsible for helping create or generate a ton of this content, I have to set a reminder every week for myself to share one thing on LinkedIn, or just, usually it's more than that, but I try to share one thing on LinkedIn. And the content runs the gamut of things that you can have conversations about, from, things that help empower travelers to things that help empower business. There's some great stuff out there. We have some recently re-energized or released verticals that are doing great work. We have our energy, resources, and marine vertical. We're doing, we're innovating every day in hotel. We have BCD M&E, sports. Like there's a ton of good stuff happening at BCD, and Move is one of the fastest, easiest ways to learn about it and share about it.
So Shemika, there's a lot of clarity being brought around these key differentiators. So give me the one thing. What's the one thing as a user, as an end user, I should be doing right now to help support?
I'm going to cheat a little bit and make it a 1A and a 1B.
Okay.
1A is learn what our differentiators are, PSI. Listen to John and our senior leaders talk about them, or even read about them in some of the LinkedIn content I mentioned to you. And then part B is to find one piece of interesting content, one piece of engaging, compelling content that you can share with your team and with your network to help amplify the messages that we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes.
And I think that echoes our last episode that we just talked through last week, Shemika, where I spoke with Evelyn in the brand, and she was talking about how, as an individual, I may feel that my retweet or my repost or my reshare does not make a difference, but it actually does make a huge difference if 5, 6, 10, 50, 500 of us are doing that for the brand.
Absolutely.
So I think that's where we're moving down with PSI, the partnership, simplicity, and innovation, the key differentiators that make the difference for us at BCD Travel.
This has been great, Chica. I'm so glad to talk to you always.
Well, before you run away, and I know that you may not have heard a lot of episodes, Shemika, but at the end of every episode, I ask our guest 5 random questions that you do your best to answer quick fire. Are you ready for your 5?
I'm ready.
Okay, question number 1, Shemika. In the spirit of, let's say, partnership, do you throw bread for ducks when you pass them?
No, grapes.
B, that's really funny. Do you think that small little babies are bundles of joy or smelly, noisy things?
Right now, they are smelly, noisy things. I have a story I can tell you about how a little baby in my family head-butted me the other day. So smelly, noisy things.
The last city that you traveled to was it New Orleans for the sales and marketing meeting?
Memphis and then New Orleans, yes.
Okay, Memphis, great. So you're walking downtown Memphis. Question number 3. You pass a busker in Memphis playing the piano on a little kid's keyboard piano on the street. Do you toss him a quarter or a dollar?
I probably give him almost everything in my pocket.
Very cool. 4th question, second last. Have you ever, when you turn a pancake, do you use the pan to flip it or do you use like a spatula to turn it over?
I use a fork.
A fork, man, you are always the third C and beyond. Okay, well, here's a great one. The 5th question we always end our podcast with. Favorite part of being part of the BCD family for you?
Being in a position to meet as many people as I can and having conversations like this one.
Great answer, Shemika, and we appreciate you being on this week. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Chica. This has been great. It's always wonderful to speak to you.